Hi, I'm Claire, and this is the midweek reflection from Lighthouse London Church. In this current lockdown, theoretically, we all have more time. For most of us, our commute has changed dramatically, and it now involves us walking from our bedroom to our living room or wherever our workspace is in our home. However, a lot of people that I've been speaking to over the past few weeks have said that they actually have less time than before. For some, it's because kids are now off school and there's a lot more entertaining of them to do. For others, work has really ramped up and that's taking up our time. And for others, it's just the million Zoom and video conferencing calls that we're having with family and friends to try and keep our social life alive. In this reflection, I wanted to think a bit about how this could be a time to glean. How can we create margins of time in our day intentionally to spend with the Lord, listen to Him, and seek what He's doing in our lives and in the life of the world at this time? Gleaning is an Old Testament concept. In Leviticus 19:9-10, it says, "When you reap the harvest of your land, do not reap to the very edges of your field, or gather the gleanings of your harvest. Do not go over your vineyard a second time, or pick up the grapes that have fallen. Leave them for the poor and the foreigner. I am the Lord your God." The purpose of this law was to feed the poor and the foreigner and the widow. It was a safety net and a resource. The Lord has made me reflect on this and about those margins that I'm creating in my life at the moment. Yes, at this time we want to look out for the vulnerable and those most in need. And it's been amazing to see how our community have already been doing that in loads of ways. But today, I want to focus on us as the gleaner. This season feels like we could really have more of an opportunity to create margins and time for Jesus to really speak to us. In the story of Ruth, gleaning is a key theme. Ruth is such a beautiful book, and if you haven't looked at it in a while, I'd really recommend picking it up again and having a read. Plus, it is super short, so that is an added bonus. But to summarise the story, Ruth is a Moabite woman. She leaves her home and travels with her mother-in-law Naomi to Bethlehem. This is after both her father-in-law, her brother-in-law, and her husband have all died in the land of Moab. So Ruth arrives in Bethlehem, she's a foreigner, and her mother-in-law have no provision, they have no man to provide for them, and so they're desperate. And Ruth decides, I'm going to go and glean from a field, and she ends up in the field of a godly man called Boaz. Boaz is kind and generous and takes notice of Naomi. Let's pick up in Ruth chapter 2 verse 8. So Boaz said to Ruth, "My daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with the women who work for me. Watch the field where the men are harvesting, and follow after the women. I have told the men not to lay a hand on you, and whenever you are thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars the men have filled." Boaz actually goes further than this, and he offers Ruth a meal, he makes sure she has more than enough, and he says to the men that work for him, "Even pull out some stalks for her from the bundles and leave them for her to pick up, and don't rebuke her." So what does it require for a person to glean and for us to glean in this season? Well, it requires a posture of vulnerability. To come knowing that we can't provide it all for ourselves. That this is a time where we are totally out of control, the world is out of control. And we need to come to the Master's field and know that we don't really have much to offer. We need to humble ourselves to do this. In the Old Testament, the generosity of the master of the crop determined the success of the gleaning. In the story of Ruth, Boaz represents Jesus. And as a side note, Boaz and Ruth, they get married at the end of the story, and they are in the genealogy of Jesus, which is really cool. Jesus is our master, and he promises to provide for all of our needs. He notices our humility and our obedience and our hard work, just as Boaz notices those things in Ruth. And he promises to care for us and that there will be enough. However, he also tells us, like Boaz says to Ruth, do not glean from any other field. This is what the Lord also wants for us. And how much in this season are we gleaning from other places instead of the Lord and his word? How much are we gleaning from the news, from social media, from views of our family and friends, or even our own anxious thoughts? When really, first and foremost, we should be gleaning from the word of God and hearing the Lord's still, small voice in the midst of all of this chaos. We need to be just like Ruth. We need to make space and time for gleaning. We need to be humble enough to turn up. We need to follow carefully behind Jesus, watching the spiritual food that he drops and being sure to pick it up. Interestingly, in Ruth, there had just been a famine in the land, and then it says the harvest began. How much has there been a spiritual famine, maybe in your own life? Definitely in the life of our country, there's been a spiritual famine. And now, what can we do in this time of space to really glean what the Lord is saying and doing? I believe through this time of gleaning, the Lord will be equipping us and teaching us for the season ahead. He wants to resource us. So as we lean in more to him, spend time with him, get to know him, trust him more, we're going to be changed at the other side of this season. When we spend time with him, we can't help but be changed for the better. And the great thing is that when we learn to glean really well, we actually have enough to give away to other people. Like in the story of Ruth, she gleaned so much that she had more than enough for herself and for Naomi. And that's what the Lord wants for us as well. So maybe after you've listened to this reflection, you might want to spend some time with God and ask him these questions and reflect. What margins are you allowing in your life right now? What might you need to cut out to allow greater margin and time to glean? And what might Jesus want you to glean from him at this time? I hope you have a great week, and God bless.